Okay, wow. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Powerful Stuff. Powerful Stuff is your one-stop shop for inner and outer connection. I like to say a little bit of cheeky self-development, if you will. And today we have a really exciting Powerful Stuff. I have a special guest, Christine Hernandez, who is author of Remember Your Roots, which we can see right here if you're watching, and also the founder of Somalux Cacao. And today we're really going to go on a journey of the importance of remembering our own roots, why it's important to reclaim, our own story, that of our ancestors, and how you all can do it too if you're not familiar with the process of kind of tapping back into who you are, which then leads us to who we're meant to be. Mm-hmm. And so I'm so grateful that you're here. It was such a delightful message of having you reach out to me and then me looking at all of your stuff and being like, wait, did I just hit the jackpot? So I'm so honored that it all manifested perfectly.
It was so meant to be, because I also went to one of your gatherings and it was really sweet and I had wanted to connect anyway. So then I saw you on IG without even piecing it together and was like, wait, oh yes, let's hang out, let's connect, let's collab.
Yeah, which is so exciting. And now we're doing the podcast and our best morning ever together. Yes. And so I just would love to start off by giving the listener a kind of overview of what was your journey into remembering your roots, and where were you before that, and what was the catalyst and the awakening to remembering your roots?
The catalyst was my kind of dark moment, right? My knees on the ground, crying, being in a toxic relationship actually, and realizing that I needed to change my life because no one else was going to get me out of my muck and that darkness. And so then I threw myself into wellness and I started reading beautiful books that could support me and going into yoga. Mm-hmm. So yoga led me to yoga teacher training. I was in a yoga class, probably one of the first or second yoga classes. I was like, I need more of this. Whatever this is incredible. It was probably the first time I ever felt any sense of peace. Wow. Right. And I knew I was going to manifest yoga teacher training. I was even asking them is there a yoga teacher training for this? And what does that look like? I remember a guy telling me it's $10,000 to do yoga teacher training for this type of yoga. I was like, that's insane. How can anyone afford that?
Yeah.
So, but I was like, I'm going to manifest it somehow, yoga in some form, in some way. And I tried different yogas in different places, and I ended up finding yoga teacher training in Bali of all places. And it wasn't just any yoga, but it was mystical yoga. It was hatha vinyasa, but mystical shamanic yoga. And they had come from Guatemala to Bali, and there I was introduced to Mayan cacao from Guatemala in a ceremony, and that changed my life forever because I'm Guatemalan. And I had never known of anything that was really positive of my lineage, of the Guatemalans, of the Mayans. There was very little known, very little taught to us in school, right? And then from my parents, I knew nothing. My father's side was from Guatemala and Mayan. He was definitely a mix. He had Spanish as well. He has passed away. And then my mother, who is Mexican American, there's also Mayan from that side and the Mexican side as well. So yeah, the cacao deeply supported me in reconnecting to my heart in the moment. That first ceremony as well was super potent. And I had this understanding and knowing I'm meant to work with this medicine, not only for my healing, but also to share it in a big way. I was I'm going to change the world. Instead of us drinking coffee every morning, we are going to start drinking cacao. People need to start drinking cacao so that we can connect to our hearts before we go about our days, instead of just chugging a Starbucks, right? Because that was the only thing that I had known about around that time. And what most people know about in the mainstream is drinking their coffees and just boom, going, right? And having that quick fix. But I was just thinking and have been feeling into this forever. It's just what if, we connected with our hearts before we went about our days? And yeah, so that's how it began.
Wow. And to even further dig into like the contrast, like what
Mm-hmm.
were you thinking about like your family history or its relevance to you in present day before the Bali experience? And then when you
Mm-hmm.
had that awakening with the cacao, like what was the like a lot of people might be like overwhelmed at that first like spiritual awakening. Like where did
Right.
you go from there? What
Mm.
was that first thing you did to start to peel back the layers after that
Y-
moment?
Yeah, I think for me, what it did and supported is connecting me with my inner child. So it was a very playful way of connecting with the plant medicine, right? I guess
Mhm.
that could be overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, plant medicine. What is cacao? And I think a lot of people who are listening to this probably know about plant medicine and plant
Mhm.
allies, right? There's nourishing ones, there's consciousness shifting herbs. Now, cacao it's a subtle but profound medicine. It's gentle on the nervous system. It's not like a psychedelic or anything like that. So it was really, really playful. Um, and so for me, it was kind of easy to get into. And at the same time, I do remember going to a few other ceremonies and being like, this is kind of odd and weird. And that's definitely from the like conditioning and programming of like, oh, that's a cult. That's the only like term that I could even, or box that I could put it into at the time. I was
Right.
so unaware of like what existed outside of like religion, right? Christianity, like uh Catholicism, and then there's like cults. That's like kind of all I knew. There wasn't a lot of in between. I didn't know anything about any of the other spiritual practices and religions and things. So I don't even know if I answered that question, but you could bring it back.
Yeah, yeah, no, but it's so true. It's like when we first like think about or like are experiencing something, we're like,
Yeah.
yeah, what is this? And then like
Yeah.
flash forward like 3 or 4 years, we're like, I am the cult. No, I'm joking. But
No, then you realize that
yeah,
everything is actually a cult, and
yeah,
that's what creates culture. Actually,
yeah,
when everybody says, "Okay, this is what we're doing here in this culture," that becomes the thing, right?
yeah,
But everything is a cult. So whatever you want to, you know, be into, that becomes like your cult, actually. It's fascinating. There's a lot around that word, and there's a lot around a lot of words. That's why you need to look into like what it truly means,
yeah,
and what does it mean for you? It can mean something totally different to somebody else. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. I love that cult and culture. I'm like, I can't believe I haven't ever put two and two together,
Right?
but here we are.
Literally, there's cults everywhere, and the culture that we have is its own cult. Just
Yeah.
like when you go outside of your culture, you go to someone else, you're like, that seems like a cult. That seems different. That seems weird. But that's just because you're not aware of like all these different practices. That's why we need to share them, right, with
Yeah.
others and realize like we're all so different and diverse, but it's like there's so many beautiful practices outside of what you may know of.
Totally. Yeah, 1,000%. And then I guess, yeah, that brings me back to like the um initial wondering of like what was your relationship to like your family lineage
Yeah.
before going to Bali and like how did you view it and its relevance to you at that time in present day?
Yeah, so I was super disconnected from all parts of myself in reality. Before that really, dark night of the soul, basically, I was really into numbing for my feelings, for coping with my emotions and things because I had no guidance. I had no idea there was even like a wellness world.
Yeah.
Um, I had lost my father when I was 22. The same month that I turned 22, he had taken his life.
Wow.
And he was in and out of my life, anyways, from the age of 3 to about 18. But it was about a month before he took his life that I had found a family member who was in contact with him, and I was excited to like reach out. I knew he had gone through depression. I knew he had been in and out of prison. He was really depressed growing up because he had been through a lot, migrating from Guatemala to America when he was about 5 years old. And he had been through so much, but me being the age that I was what, 21 then, I thought, we could at least be friends. And I really wanted to connect. I really wanted to know him because I didn't know, a lot about him. So when he took his life, I just felt like, oh, I lost a part of myself forever. And I'm never going to know this person and know this lineage. And I didn't even have the words to think that or to really understand that, but I just felt
Right.
devastated, right? I felt devastated, very hurt and distraught. And it was really traumatic, actually. So then in my 20s, I went into numbing to numb my emotions and feelings over that. With my mother's side, we grew up not very religious, not spiritual either. We had gone to, Catholic churches once in a while for some holiday stuff here and there. But I wasn't into it. I never resonated with it. I never liked really going. And so I was not connected to my indigenous roots in any way, right? To me, all I would think of myself at that time is I was Mexican American. I never even acknowledged my Guatemalan roots inside,
Oh, wow.
especially my Mayan roots, right?
Yeah.
And now I would say that I feel like I'm a Latina who is indigenous, right? And deeply connected to my Mayan roots. So I'm like this wild mix, and we're so many different things, obviously, but I'm multifaceted, multidimensional, but deeply connected to those indigenous roots because I think it's really important for us to know that we're all indigenous. We all have these incredible lineages, and there's so much wisdom, so much magic that is there. And when we reclaim that, we can really step into that power and that understanding and know that we belong to that, know that we have so much that we belong to, so much more than we realize, not just these relatives that we have in this lifetime as well.
Totally. Yeah. And it is so interesting because it's like, yeah, what you were saying, like when your dad passed and before you kind of had that awakening, it's like, like those emotions like wanted to come out, but like showed up through numbing. And then when you finally did have the like cacao experience and teacher training experience in Bali, what was the first step to like allowing yourself to reconnect to those emotions and like look at like your past lineage and all the kind of like hurt and missing pieces that were there with your dad? And how did that journey like begin to unfold after you kind of had that initial awakening?
The way it unfolded, I mean, I was really disconnected from my emotions. And I think what allowed me to even kind of peek into that was going at it in a playful way.
Yeah.
Which I think is so healing and beautiful. And I love how playful you are as well. And
Thank
also
you.
with the podcast and in all ways, because that's what supported me in going into it and then realizing there's a lot to look at. But I went into it in this kind of like light and love phase and way because that's that was the easiest way for me. That led me to go to Guatemala to connect with, the ancestors there. I have no family that's in Guatemala that I know of.
Wow.
And no family from that side that I know of as either. So for me, I just would go to the land. And the first time I remember going to Guatemala, I went to the lake and I felt an overwhelming sense of, love, of grief, of so many different emotions. I didn't have words for it. And I also wasn't even able to fully feel into them. Like I remember being like overwhelmed with it and almost like shaking, but I don't even remember crying. Like I wasn't able to fully access them yet, And that had been months with working with the cacao. So she would put me into a more playful state, a sweet state. I wasn't often crying. However, cacao can support you for sure in coming into your tears. And I'm sure I've had that. I would have that once in a while. But in the very beginning, what I remember is a lot more sweetness, a lot more playfulness. So I remember I was having cacao, looking at this beautiful lake, and many of you probably know Lake Atilan in Guatemala, right? Which is actually Lake Nashal in Mayan. That's the name for it. But I was looking over the lake, and there was a blackbird flying over the lake, and I remember feeling into my connection with my father's essence and my ancestors. My father's nickname was Crow.
Oh.
Right. So anytime I've seen the crow, it's been this reminder, like he's there with me, he's watching over me, he's guiding me, and he's come at a very auspicious time. So it's really special.
Wow. I love that. And I love what you say of like it being a playful journey because I feel like sometimes when we think about looking at our past, remembering our roots, healing our trauma, or that of, people who have come before us in our family, it can feel so daunting.
Right.
And like Pandora's box of like, where do we even begin? And I think having the light and the playfulness actually like probably gives us an easier time to like open ourselves up and to allow ourselves to even go there.
Yes, exactly. And another thing that came up really early in my journey was this understanding like because I was in that playful state and I was like loving myself and having fun with my inner child, connecting to her, I realized that, my mother is also, she has that inner child as well. And she was only doing her best, right? So I remember really being able to feel into like forgiveness for her really quickly on in my journey. And again, this is a cycle or, it's a
Yeah.
circle and it is not from point A to B. So then other things came up and it just came up later on. So I definitely have dealt with and worked with the shadow and we all get to, but
Yeah.
like when we're coming into it, it can be really supportive to kind of come at it from a, gentle and like playful way in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I was gonna say that kind of brings us to like, I guess maybe like the first touch point for our listener, for our loyal listeners,
Yeah.
um, of like if people are starting to be curious of like that first step of remembering their roots, like what is that first thing that you suggest, and how do you suggest they infuse that playfulness into it?
So, of course, cacao, right?
Mm.
I call cacao this connector, supports you in connecting with your roots. So you don't have to have Mayan roots to connect and have support with this plant ally and ancestral plant. It will support you in connecting to your ancestors and to your heart and inner child. So, what I would suggest is making a cup of ceremonial cacao and creating like a little ritual for yourself, you setting the space, you can burn some beautiful blessing herbs. And I would recommend using, herbs that are local to you, finding those herbs at like a local, herbal space. And
Mhm.
um, that supports in clearing like your aura, right? The smoke is really supportive also in calling in your ancestors as well. So it's like a
Oh,
double
nice.
whammy, super supportive. And just setting the intention. Everything is really about intention. Where is your heart? Are you fully present when you're making that cup of cacao? So from start to finish, really making it a ceremony. And you do that through your intention.
I love that. And yeah, just kind of having like the deep presence of the ritual
Yeah.
of like arriving.
Yeah.
And also, I guess this is like circling back to an earlier thing that you said with your father being nicknamed the Crow.
Mm.
Actually, when my grandma passed away and I was very close to her, she was
Mm.
like a best friend of mine.
Yeah.
I have the Kim Krantz Animal Spirit deck,
Mm.
and I pulled a card and I said, like, whichever card I pull when it's
Oh, I love
present, when this animal's present, I'll know that my grandma's with me. And I pulled a bunny. So now anytime I see like bunnies and they were present on my wedding day. And so I just
wow.
love the idea too of like, I know it was your dad's nickname, but like having some sort of symbol, however somebody
Exactly.
comes to it, where it's just like a little wink from the universe, a
Yeah.
reminder that like their presence is with you.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. And you can do that intuitively, right? Like you can also be at a park and, call in that spirit animal and ask for an ancestor to come through. And then that can be that spirit animal that you connect with. Every time you see them, then you'll know that that ancestor's with you.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. And I love also kind of imagining our parents and our grandparents and ancestors as like in like seeing their inner children.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to, the Hoffman process,
Mm,
it's
what?
like a 1 week reparenting yourself retreat
No, I
in,
love it.
yeah, in Petaluma. And it's all about like healing our inner child. And
Mm-hmm.
at one point, they're quite secretive about what goes on at Hoffman, but one activity I will say is like you write a letter to your parents' inner child from your inner child and
So
like
sweet.
see them as a 12-year-old. And I just feel like what you're saying of like seeing your mom with that, it just so hones in like, uh, our parents or their parents are doing the best they could
Mm-hmm.
with what they had. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like learned behaviors until we are aware enough to like break the cycle and like heal from that and like
Mm-hmm.
give forgiveness to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and with that, that kind of brings me to the second step or question of like when you are kind of reconciling with the past of your ancestors, maybe some people are dealing with like parents or grandparents or, dark histories either like
Yep.
done unto them or that their ancestors have done unto others. Like, what is your recommendation for like how people kind of sit with this and process it and move through it?
Yeah, it's essential to recognize and acknowledge that there's the light and the dark within all of the ancestors, right? And I can relate to that so deeply, where I have many relatives who have, you know, done and not been the best in the human form, including my father. There are
Mm.
many beautiful qualities to him, and then there are others that were dark, and he hurt many people. So knowing that, it supported me in this process and unfolding of like recognizing that he was human, that on this, on this plane, he was human. He had his experience, and um, you know, for me, I can forgive him for what he's done to me. I don't have to forgive him for what he's done to others. That's up to us
Mhm.
in what we want to do. However, forgiveness can really support you in really being free from any energy around what was done. Um, and also knowing that in their spiritual form, like on the other planes, it's a different perspective, right? Like
Mhm.
for him, he's coming to me from a different perspective. It's his beautiful spiritual, healed and light essence that I feel him in now. So
Right.
it's very different. Um, and also, yeah, it's really important to realize that they had both the light and the dark. So if we, come from relatives who have participated in colonization, for instance, right?
Mhm.
For me, I have Spanish. So I can speak to me. I have Spanish as well as my indigenous roots. And it wasn't until more recently that I realized, well, even within my Spanish lineage, I did have grandmothers that were making beautiful healing meals for their families, that were
Yeah.
healers as well, doing beautiful things for their families, right? So it wasn't all one thing. Nothing is one thing in one way.
Yeah.
So there's both. That supported me in opening up to my Spanish lineage and loving that part of myself, because it's essential for you to love all aspects of yourself, to extend forgiveness to your ancestors and love to your ancestors to support you, because you're alchemizing all of those feelings and those energies into love, right? If we continue in hating some aspects of ourselves, that's only going to cause, disharmony, and, you know, nothing good's going to come out of that.
Totally. Yeah. And I love the idea of alchemizing everything because I feel like in our present day, like singular form, it's like the shadow work that we do with our
Yeah,
present self. And it's similarly like having that and loving all parts of our shadow to
right,
love the wholeness of
right,
ourself. And I feel like
right,
it's, yeah, giving that same grace to like
right.
our ancestors of acknowledging the hard things that were done or that we've seen, but then also like the light. And
Right.
yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like a lot of people in the world are deal in absolutes
Right.
and it keeps us, I feel like, super polarized.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love this idea of like looking at the nuances of things and helping people find um, forgiveness and perspective in the
Yeah.
nuances of allowing for both.
Yeah, and acknowledge your feelings. If there's hurt and there's pain, your feelings are valid, and that is okay. And we don't want to stay there forever, right? We
Mhm.
we want to be able to, again, alchemize and move those feelings and those emotions so that we can come into our higher frequency, so we can live our best lives, right?
Yeah.
So,
Is there a specific like ritual or thing that you either suggest to the listener that you've done yourself when you were kind of going on that journey of loving and accepting the light and the dark of your ancestors on both sides?
um, I guess I would say I would recommend for people to actually work with their own ancestral plants when it comes to that.
Hmm.
Work with, like, Google it first, right?
Yeah.
Really learn and find out like what herbs and plants were your ancestors working with.
Hmm.
And that way you can work with that specific energetics and call in, those feelings of forgiveness, feelings of love, and let the plant support you, because your plant allies have an intelligence and support that's specific to you and your lineage. So allow them to support you in that. So obviously that I would bring it back to cacao, and also like movement and dance and expressing yourself, rage rituals, things like that, to like really work with, feel into those energies and then move them through.
Yeah. It's so interesting because when you said like work with your plants, like
Hmm.
I'm of Ukrainian and Irish descent. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I wonder
Yeah.
what the allies of
Yeah.
the Ukraine are.
Yes. Now you have to look it up,
I have to look it up and I'm like, should I put on some Ukrainian music?
Exactly. Right. And if you, let's say you can't for some reason get any of the herbs that are from your region, those regions, one plant we know, or a one, ally that we can work with is the mycelium, the mushrooms,
Hmm.
right? Psilocybin is a mushroom that was used in every lineage. It's everywhere. It's all over the world. So that one we can agree, like it's for everyone.
Yeah, it's like pervasive. That's so
Yep,
crazy.
yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
know that like different, yeah,
Yeah,
cultures on other side of the globe were using it as well.
everywhere. So then, okay, so we can microdose that. I'm not saying go on a huge, hero's journey on the first time or anything like
Yeah.
that, but you can work with a small amount, and I will guarantee you will have a profound experience, especially if you make that intentional to connect with your ancestors, and do that beautiful healing work.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. You guys heard it here first. Mycelia, the global ancestral
And
plant.
and again, cacao is one of those that will support you in doing that as well. And it's super
Totally.
gentle. And those also work really incredibly together. They're synergistic. So
It's so funny. I just think of this now. This is such a rabbit hole, but my friend who I met my friend a few years ago, right before the pandemic, at a cacao ceremony. And she then has become one of my great friends and started Mycelium, the festival
mm,
about the mycelial networks. I'm like, oh my gosh,
sweet.
mycelial
Yep.
cacao synergy.
Hmm.
But kind of unrelated, but just in case everyone was wondering, Mycelium is a great festival. You guys should check it out. Matt and I, or our mutual friend, had some nice little
Oh,
drop-ins at Mycelium.
sweet.
But also, other tangent before we get fully back on course, but I would love for you to explain to like the difference between regular cacao and
Hmm.
ceremonial grade cacao, because I think a lot of people hear the word ceremonial grade and don't fully understand it,
Yeah.
and just kind of like what to look for when people are, yeah, kind of thinking
Yeah.
about where to source their cacao.
Yeah, so ceremonial grade cacao means that it's made intentionally, thoughtfully by the Mayan people. Well, I guess not all of them, right? For me, it's mine is made with the Mayan peoples, and it's harvested with intention, with love. It's made ceremonially. That's
Hmm.
that's the main difference. And so it's also pure cacao, which means that it's lightly processed. So the cacao is taken from the pod, right? And there's about 50 beans within one pod. That is fermented. Then it's lightly roasted, then hand peeled, and then stone grinded into a block paste. So that's what you get when you get my ceremonial cacao. So it's as pure as you can get. You have all the living enzymes, all of the health benefits that you want from cacao. So when we talk about pure cacao, you have all of these beautiful properties within it that make this a superfood as well as a spiritual aid.
Hmm.
Um, and then, yes, you can find some organic cacaos out there that are good. And if that's what you have, great, work with that one, for the
Yeah.
first time and make it really intentional and ceremonial with your own energetics. But don't just, work with, you don't want to work with powders. Powders remove all of the fats where that's where all the good stuff is.
Right.
And then obviously chocolate is just it's really just sugar with the flavor of cacao.
Right.
So that's the
So true.
problem with chocolates is that it strips all of the fats, all of the good stuff, right? And they actually usually put that good fat in a lot of face products because it's really good for your skin. It's
Right.
good for you in all ways. That's why they take it out and they make a lot more money from that. But with your chocolate bars, that's why they're so cheap, is because they fill that with a bunch of oils, bad oils, and then you get just this flavor of the chocolate and sugar. So it's not cacao, right? So it's
Yeah.
very different from ceremonial cacao. And yeah, if you're wanting to work with this for your healing, you want to buy ceremonial cacao made with that intention. And the energetics of it is like when you get something that's made by your grandmother and the difference between your grandmother's food and going to like,
The grocery
fast food
store. Yeah.
or something, yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I definitely like taste the difference. It's funny, I have a friend
Yeah.
who's like a healer and we were just chatting one day and she's like, I have a confession. I'm like, what? And she's like, when I make my cacao in the morning, I use the like 365 cacao. And I was like, healer exposed. I'm like, just imagine the paparazzi like photographing her as she leaves Whole Foods. But we had a good laugh about that. But both agreed that ceremonial grade is the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And then kind of jumping back into like your journey with that, like when you had the awakening in Bali with the cacao, like what were your next steps in throwing yourself into it, and and did like your world shift around you in terms of like your relationship to different family members or who you were hanging out with? Like what was that initial journey when you had that kind of crack in the opening?
Death and rebirth. Yeah. I mean, everything changed and shifted, and I threw myself into learning everything about cacao. I was obsessed. I was like, how is it that we don't know about cacao, but chocolate is everywhere? It's all over the world, and we don't know this beautiful thing about cacao. So I just threw myself into research, buying all the books about cacao, listening to all the podcasts about cacao, working with it every day for myself, and then realizing I need to go to the lands to connect directly with the cacao spirit herself and be with the trees and the plant and also with the ancestors. And what it looked like for me too is sharing it. I was sharing it. I was teaching yoga pretty quickly right away. I was very immersed in the yoga world and the scene, and I was teaching, and I would introduce it to people who were into yoga, and they loved it. And I was sharing it in that way and sharing it with everyone I knew. So I definitely came back and was hoping that people would be open-minded to it. And so I would just start discussing it with anyone and everyone. I remember being in like Beverly Hills at a lunch and sharing it with the most random person who was so over his head. But it was just practice for me of like speaking on it and about it to anyone and everyone. And shortly after that, honestly, I didn't have any friends again. I had to start from the ground up. I didn't have all the old friends, and they didn't resonate anymore. They didn't get it. They didn't understand. And it was a whole new world for me. And so then
was that scary, or it just felt like a natural like falling away?
I felt like a natural falling away for sure.
Yeah.
What was scary is the finding the new, I think.
Yeah.
Of like,
and how did you go about that, like in this new energy?
Mostly online. Like, you could find people who like were doing similar things, and I would find friends online on Instagram, and then at yoga places and places like, that resonated with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. And it's so cool that you got back and you were just so excited about it and just like talk to people about it. Because I think so many people deal with imposter syndrome of like discovering something, but like, am I ready to share?
Yeah.
And I need to be like fully equipped on this topic, but it's like the only way we become an expert is like by doing it and just by like starting and sharing and like seeing what happens. So I love that you just like, it came from such a like pure and like magnetic place.
Yeah. I mean, I just started talking about it with anyone and everyone who would listen to me about it, right? And just start discussing it with family members. They're like, what is she talking about? But it didn't matter. It was, again, it was just practice, and it was exciting, and it was just, it needed to happen and support me for then talking about it on podcasts, right? And other things and talks that I do and sharing cacao ceremonies with people all over the world. It's like, just start somewhere. If you're really excited about something, there's a reason you're excited about it.
Right.
So just discussing it is like the first step, and your family is a perfect place to start, and friends.
Totally. I love that. And I feel like it's a great kind of like third step to what we were talking about of like, working with your ancestral plants and like creating a ritual around that. And then it's like, it sounds like the third step is like noticing what spark or curiosity or thing that you're drawn to, and like how can you approach it almost with like a beginner's mindset of just like complete student sponge mode and like talking about it, learning about it, like sharing about it. And what did talking about cacao do with like your family? Like, I don't know if you have siblings, or like, how did it go with your mom? Did you feel like this new awakening in you brought those relationships closer?
Yeah, in ways. I still feel like my mom doesn't fully get all the things, but she respects them. She sees how beautiful they are. She
Hmm.
doesn't fully get it. It's not like she's drinking cacao every morning.
Right. Has she
Um,
done a cacao ceremony
yeah, of
with you?
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then my sister loves it. Yeah, she absolutely loves it. And I have family members who love drinking the blended cacao that I also source. They
Yeah.
they like the chopped version. They're not all
Yeah.
into like the ceremonial aspects, but they love the healing and the health aspects of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did it awaken like your mom or your sister or other family members to like um deepen their kind of ancestral knowledge or talk with you about it more as you were kind of having your own awakening?
It fully supported them in going into their own healing journeys and spiritual journeys, and it looks different for both of them. But it's really special to see my younger sister and what it's done for her life. And now she's like going back to school and wants to go and be a psychologist. And it's
Wow.
very different from mine, but it's definitely supported her in her healing journey and yeah, reconnecting to her roots and spirituality. So it's been such a blessing in my family's lives too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. How did you know, like, when you were going through your journey with cacao, of like, I'm going to start sourcing it now? And like, how did you find those people? And do you feel like you were able to kind of pick up where your ancestors left off,
Yeah.
so to speak, like kind of reconnecting to your Guatemalan roots? Or do you feel like there was like some sort of kind of time lapse or like rite of passage you like went through in your own journey to like feel reconnected to that side of yourself?
What's interesting when you said that, what came up is like the fact that my father, I want to share, my father, before he took his life, he was open to spirituality and he was curious about his roots and his indigenous roots. So that's what was really fascinating to me is recently I just found out that he had gone to Peru and he had sat in an ayahuasca ceremony.
Oh, wow.
And that was wild. However, the ceremony itself actually wasn't a real one. They had gotten like gypped by,
Yeah.
whatever happened. But what I found out through his best friend was that it wasn't a real one. But the fact that he was even curious about that and then passed away, he lived and died in Culver City. Then I came to Culver City, lived in Culver City. That same year, I moved there without even recognizing that I'm moving to this exact same part that my father lived in LA. That's so wild.
Wow.
And then, going on my journey and then coming, it's like I picked up the torch where he left off,
Yeah.
he couldn't continue. So I did that for the lineage. He got as far as he could. Um, but I don't even know where I was going with the thread. What was
Oh, but
the
I love, or you were saying like, yeah, the time lapse of like reconnecting with your like Guatemalan roots. And yeah, I feel like so many synchronicities, like having a Culver City in your thread with him. And something that I'm just like so impressed by is just like the grace and peace and reverence in talking about your father,
Mm,
because I know you said he wasn't like as much in your life. And I
mm,
think so many people struggle with like parents or people in their life they've had like who have been absent, and just like the
yeah.
the acceptance and love and like trust in how it unfolded is like really beautiful to
Mm.
witness.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey and you know, interesting too how like I'll get bits and pieces. So it supports me in like going through a bit of a roller coaster ride, but being able to like hold yeah, certain aspects and the learnings that I find out about him. And then I'll find out something else. So it's been a journey and yeah, I have nothing but love for him and the support that he's had for me, in his spiritual essence. I do feel our ancestors are always with us, guiding us, also living vicariously through us if we want them to. And it's whoever we want to be open to. And what I recommend for everyone is always opening to the well and the healed ancestors, the ones also that love you unconditionally, right? Those are
Yeah.
the ancestors that you want to call into. And this work that we do to, heal ourselves, to love ourselves and all these things, it supports them, right? It supports the ancestors and it supports us in our path as well and the legacy that we carry forward. So, we can either carry forward, the beautiful aspects of them, the wisdom, the love that they carried,
Right.
or if you're unconscious, you're going to carry forward the trauma and the wounds that they had as well. So we want to be conscious of what we're doing in this lifetime.
Totally. Yeah. And kind of speaking to like the like culture at large, like what was the journey as you're kind of putting together pieces from your dad's journey of like reconnecting to like your Mayan roots and like learning about the Mayan people and having not really identified with the Guatemalan part of yourself for up until that point, like what was your journey in like rediscovering that, and like were you taken under a mentor's wing or like what kind of happened there to help reconnect you to those side of your roots?
The biggest connection was to my ancestors and realizing that I'm getting to do something that's so incredible for my lineage because they weren't able to do that, right? Like that's the thread, is that my father, right? He got as far as he could. He couldn't go any further, and he was just beginning to learn very briefly about it before he passed away. And then here I am, and I'm diving deep into it, going to Guatemala, to the lands to connect with the ancestors themselves. And then it's definitely essential to find wisdom keepers and to learn from the elders also. So for me, the process for me was going to Guatemala and finding different teachers that resonated with me. And they're not all going to resonate with you and fit, and they all shouldn't, because we're not for everyone, and everyone is not for us. And so in the beginning of my journey, there were different teachers that I sat with, and now I'm sitting with others that I really love, that really understand me, and that really resonate with my heart and an open heart, and also understand that yes, I'm not Mayan from Guatemala, and I did not grow up in that culture, but it's so essential for us all to reclaim our roots, right, and our lineages, and share in a way that resonates with an open heart for those of us with ancestors who could not. So for so many of us, right, the ability to share about cacao was taken away. Systematically it was taken. It was incredibly dangerous for Mayans in Guatemala even to share cacao, to share their traditions, the Mayan fire ceremony, all these different things. It was looked upon as if it was witchcraft and evil, right? I mean,
like the Spanish came in.
Then the Spanish came in, and even recently, because there's evangelicals that are very dogmatic and extreme, and it was only a few years ago where there was a Mayan spiritual guide that was burned at the stake.
Wow.
So I think it's also really important, if you're sharing this medicine, that you really, honor and revere this medicine as well as the Mayan people and what they had to go through, and just know the history and how scary it was for the Mayan peoples to share that. So it is no wonder why we have a lot of indigenous people who don't know this ancestral plant for themselves and know all the beautiful benefits to it. So it's not only my honor, but it's my responsibility to share it in a big and beautiful way, right?
Yeah.
So I have beautiful teachers in Totonicopan, in Guatemala, nanas and tatas there that are like family to me, that are so supportive and beautiful. And it's very different from like Lake Atilan and like San Marcos and those other places, but there's beautiful teachers there as well. So I would recommend, if you're wanting to connect with the Mayan lineage, like going to the lands and seeing, who resonates with your heart and what fits for you.
How did you go about like finding them? Like, or you just like arrived in Guatemala
I just
and like
threw myself into it and asked questions, with the locals that were there, and
like, who should I meet? And
who should I meet? Who's sharing cacao in Guatemala, and who are the Mayans that are sharing cacao in Guatemala, right? I wanted to connect with the Mayan people, so that's how I found different teachers.
Yeah, it's I love that so much. One of my favorite things, like when I was traveling, would just like be showing up and being like, who should I speak to?
It was
like,
wild
to be
to be in Guatemala and not know really anyone that first time, and be like, on the lake, in the boat, and seeing all these Mayan people and being like, I feel like they look like me and I look like them, and that could be my auntie or my uncle. And I remember being on the boat once, and there was a boat going by, and the name on there was Hernandez, which is my last name. And I'm just like, oh, that's another one of those synchronicities, right?
Yeah.
And that's something to recognize for everyone, is like, pay attention to the synchronicities that are coming up. Those are little messages from the ancestors in spirit of like, they see you, they love you, they're there with you, right? It's making magic out of the mundane. It's a way to live a really magical life is with your intention, with your awareness, with your noticing.
Totally. Yeah. And I love looking for synchronicities. In fact, like even just like on a neurological level, Mel Robbins was saying on her podcast that even just looking for hearts, like even if you're not sure what to look for, but just looking for like hearts in the cloud or whatever.
Angel numbers.
Angel numbers. It just like rewires your brain actually over time. Like even if people are less spiritual to be like, everything is happening for me. And it's like a great reaffirmation of that. And the day I was listening to her podcast, he went to Barry's boot camp and I was wearing a sports bra and I was sweating and I looked at my boob sweat was in the shape of a heart. And I'm like,
that is so cute.
I'm like, it's happening for me.
Do you want me to share a fun one?
Yes, please. I love a good synchronicity share.
Okay, this is so good. So I was moving out of my place in Marina Del Rey, gathering all my things, found some writings from my father that I hadn't gone through. And this is recent. The reason I hadn't gone through, like I said, it's a cycle and it's been an up and down roller coaster with my healing, with my paternal lineage for sure. And so I had put his things away a couple of years ago and it was like, I'm not ready to look at all of the things anymore. I need to just put that away for now. So anyway, bring them out. This is just a few months ago. And I'm looking through them. That's when I find out about Peru. And I also find out that his best friend is the co-founder of Tia Chucha's, which is a bookstore that is also a cultural center in the Valley that I had already been looking at to have my book launch party at.
Wow.
So I'm looking at that name and it's his number. So I call him up and I'm like, hi, can we connect? Like, I need to know you and I need to talk with you. Like, you were my dad's best friend and I want to have my book launch party at your bookstore. And this is just wild. And so we talk and we connect. And then it's a couple days later that I'm like walking outside and the crow comes to me.
Wow.
It doesn't just come to me and just like sit there, but it like I'm talking to the crow and I leave and I'm like, okay, thank you. I love you, going. And I continue to walk and the crow starts to play with me while I'm walking. He hits my hat. I have like video of this.
Wow.
Yeah. And the crow's hitting my hat and then going right in front of me once again on the ledge so that I get to play with it again and talk to it again. And then it continues for quite some time, which is really, really special. And it was just like this, again, that feeling of like, thank you, seeing the ancestors, my dad, that was wild, crazy synchronicities. So by the way, I had my book launch party there with Luis. It was wild and crazy and incredible and so beautiful.
And what a like homage to your ancestors, your dad, and like, the crow just like reaffirming that.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful like gift that you've, given and alchemizing in his pain and his journey and giving it so much beautiful like meaning and purpose as well.
Yeah. And he used to go to Tia Chucha's. He helps build one of the walls. He used to drink mocha lattes every time he would go,
right?
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah,
like, of course he had
distant
cacao.
Cousin of cacao.
Yes, he had the cacao with his coffee. I was like, of course he did.
That's so funny. I love that. And then kind of as you've carried on in your like discovery and remembering of your roots, like what have been some other practices that have really like helped you, and how did it help you come to like where you want to go or be, like in the sense of like, how has like remembering your roots helped give you a vision for your own future or shift your vision for your future?
Well, wait, there's so many threads I can go in so many ways.
I'm like, I realize sometimes I ask like 2 or 3 questions.
And that's why I love it.
So I love it
and I want to say so many things. So let's see where we go. One of the practices, I think, was one of the first questions of like how we can remember our roots. And I think a beautiful thing, and that's why there's like literally a tree on the cover here, is realizing that we're just like the tree, right? So when we remember our roots, when we know that we are like the tree, right? When we are healthy, our roots are, beautiful and abundant, and they are under the soils, connected to the earth and to all of the ecosystems underneath the ground, right? In the darkness, right?
Yeah.
And through the mycelium, they're in a beautiful state of gratitude, of reciprocity, of giving and receiving from everything around them. And that keeps them happy, keeps them healthy. And in doing so, right, then they can rise up to the heavens, right?
Right.
And we too are like the tree, and we can do that as well. And so when we are remembering our roots, right, it's not just about any one thing. Our roots are so many different parts of ourselves. They are the ancestors, but also knowing that there's so much to us. We are all things. We're connected to the elementals, right? As well, we are, we're the mind, the body, the soul, and we are spirit. We're so many things. So the book is 13 chapters, and it starts with the body because we're in this beautiful body, but it moves through body, mind, soul, ancestors, relationships into the elementals. It talks about ceremony. It talks about love and divinity as well. So that it goes through that whole process, and it's 13 chapters because 13 it represents completion and wholeness to the Mayans. So we get to know all parts of ourselves so that we can live in wholeness and live happy and healthy. And there is so much to it of knowing that when we are living in the most beautiful way, it is like living like the ancestors did, right? They lived in a state of reciprocity. They understood the power of living in gratitude, of giving and receiving, and understanding the power of interconnectedness to all that was, right?
Yeah.
That kept them super healthy and happy. So.
I love that. Yeah, using like gratitude and as a reconnection to our roots. And what's like a very simple practice, let's say, like for someone to use when they're feeling like ungrounded or not connected to their roots, or kind of like what's a simple practice that you like to use to kind of like bring yourself back to center?
There's so many that we can use. The simplest one is, getting on the ground, like getting your feet in the dirt, the mud, the sand, or sitting on the ground is going to really support you of being connected to the earth, right? Science is now having to prove these things for people to understand the importance of these indigenous practices. But the simplest ones are the most profound. So just getting into nature. Go out and hug a tree. Did you know that if you hug a tree for 20 seconds, you release oxytocin? Wow. So it's like hugging someone you love or a pet that you love.
Plastic trees count. No, I'm joking. I'm going to go outside and hug a real tree after this, for sure.
So go out and hug a tree. There's a really beautiful, powerful one.
Oh, I love that. It's like tree hugger. Yeah, it's so funny because it's like all of these like trite expressions, but they're like so rooted in depth, like in yoga, how we always say like root to rise, but it's like so true. Like only through rooting can we rise. And yeah, I love those. Like in improv, they have this acronym that's like KISS, like keep it simple, stupid. Like keeping the scene simple. And I love what you're saying with the practices too, of like it doesn't have to be so elaborate. It can just be like taking your shoes off and like putting your feet in the mud.
Yeah. I mean, nature, we are nature, and nature heals. All we need to do is get out in nature and start to listen and to remember. And who did our ancestors learn from? They learned from the elementals. They learned from nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. It's so true. And I guess that brings me to part 2 of the question, which is like in your journey from that first cacao ceremony in Bali to now, like how has it shifted what you've thought about who you're meant to be and what you're meant to do on this earth? Like what's been the importance of that and shifting your present and future?
Let's see if I get this question correctly. We can,
we can
let's
finesse
see how
it,
this goes. Well, what I'm getting from that, and I guess what I want to speak to it is that it's kind of always been in the back of like understanding that we need to connect with the plant allies.
Yeah.
But things are starting to shift, even like where I may be moving is starting to shift, or living, right? Yeah. I told you I may be going somewhere soon.
Watch the space.
Yeah. But sharing the plants in a way that is going to support us in our future of living our best lives and being more grounded, of going about our days with more intention, with more love. But it does keep coming back to wanting to share about our plant allies in a really beautiful way, because their intelligence is incredible and they're literally here to support us, and it is beyond words. Like, it's great that we can talk about this, but it's important for you to experience it. So that's like we need to have it more readily available for people to work with these beautiful plants and herbs. And what do we see everywhere? We see these coffee shops mostly, right? Matcha's getting big now too, but we don't have cacao shops. So we'll just put it there. It's like I
Yeah.
want to share that
Oh my
more.
gosh, that would be so great to have a cacao
Need to have more,
space.
spaces with cacao being shared.
That would be so
And
beautiful.
other herbs, other ancestral plants, but making it like intentional and ceremonial is what I want.
Yeah, where you really like feel it entering you and working with you
Yeah.
versus just like guzzling it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And and for me, I guess it was also sharing cacao. I started with like sharing like one-on-ones. I wanted to just share one-on-one ceremonies and it became groups. And now it's like I have the revival. I don't know if you have seen about the revival, which is like it's kind of like a summit, but it's more of an educational center for us to like learn truths about all things like the history of the United States, indigenous history, and us really sharing our ancestral magic
Mhm.
and our traditions and ways so that we can see all these beautiful diverse ways that people do it and are doing it, that the ways that have supported them in healing and living their best lives, and also seeing our own selves in their stories too.
Yeah.
So the revival is like reviving our ancestral magic and our power, reclaiming these beautiful ways of our ancestors that have been like sometimes forgotten, or, and they get to be remembered. So sharing it in bigger ways and with more people and communities.
I love that. That's so important too. And I think too, like not just our own ancestors, but learning about, the ancestors of others and
Yeah.
their rituals and their practices.
Mhm.
And it's something that I've like thought deeply about, and I'm curious like your take on it as well, of like when we are, exploring like a modality or something that comes from like a different like lineage or
Mhm.
ancestors from ours, like you know, I I think there's a lot of discussion around like,
Mhm.
reverence for or cultural appropriation,
Mhm.
and like how do you see or recommend people like having these learnings or experiences while still feeling like they're honoring like these other lineages that they might
Yeah.
not be super aware of initially.
Yeah, I mean, try to learn from those who are the lineage carriers of these beautiful practices, right? And know like you get to honor that lineage's whatever it may be, practice, modality, medicine, right?
Hmm.
Honor them. Come to it with reverence, come to it with an open heart, come to it with good intention and appreciation. Just don't just throw yourself maybe like, head first without coming to it with a humbleness and
Yeah.
a gentleness, perhaps, right? But when you come with an open heart and in good intention, then it'll flow beautifully. But we are for sure meant to share and sprinkle our medicines with each other. And yeah, it's such like a funny thing right now. It can be almost like scary to want to like go into these different like cultures and traditions, but we're meant to learn from each other. That's why I
Right.
like bringing them all together. I'm like, let's share all of them so we can see all of them and also know that your own particular lineage has a lot of wisdom and medicine and rituals and traditions that they carried as well. So learn about those ones because
Hmm.
when you do, that one may touch you the most. It
Yeah.
may, it could. I really think it'll activate something within them if they learn of their own. Because
Yeah.
that's all I know for myself is the fact that like when I've connected with my own medicine, it's changed my life forever, obviously, right?
Yeah,
Right. So
totally.
so learn of your own, but also like if cacao is calling to you, there's a reason why chocolate is all over the world. It is a medicine that is for
Yeah.
everyone. That is also why, yes, I source my own cacao because I wanted to make sure I was getting the best quality and I wasn't going through a middleman that,
Yeah.
was maybe not even of the lineage.
So it means you work with the people of the lineage directly.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why I also have courses so that you can learn how to carry it in a good way, right?
Hmm.
And I do trainings for my method as well, Matthiosh method, which is Mayan cacao meditation and movement.
Hmm.
So that's why I do that specifically, right? So learn from the people who are sharing their own unique medicines of their lineage if you're wanting to learn that specific one. If that one's really calling to you, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1,000%. It's so one of my favorite things to do, or is just like go somewhere and like immerse myself
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
under like the teachings of somebody from a particular place. And
Yeah.
my master's is actually in African studies, so I would do that. But
Amazing.
a lot of times in like living in different villages in different countries, and
Oh, if you can do that, you have access to that. Absolutely. That's like, yeah,
yeah,
that's the best.
and yeah, and it's definitely something like on a personal note, like the last few years living in Venice has been so amazing,
Mm.
in so many community ways. But I feel like
Yeah.
that part of myself is like from the past or like from my earlier 20s when I was like traveling a lot and having those experiences. And so now it's kind of almost like bringing that version of me back and
Hmm.
merging it with like the
Yeah.
stuff that I've like cultivated or developed here in Venice.
Yeah.
Um, but interestingly, like now that I think about it, I've like learned from a lot of different like lineages, but haven't really
Hmm.
like explored my Ukrainian or Irish roots. So
Yeah.
maybe after this podcast, I will
Yeah.
start there.
And I think when you are called to different cultures, you most likely had a past life that you were in that lineage, as
Mm.
well. Which I know that that's like a strong feeling that you can have. So it's important to also know that. Like, yeah. So there's that too, that aspect too. Because I'm drawn to a lot of different cultures as well. And I know I've
Yeah.
had past lives in these different ones.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful to recognize. You don't want to ignore that because, oh, I'm not this in this lifetime. It's like, no, that's also a part of you as well. So it's good to acknowledge that and recognize that can be a thing too.
Totally. Yeah. And the last thing on this part of it is like before you went to Bali, like what did you see your future as? Like, before now you have like this mission
Oh
and you're
yeah.
so tapped into it and it's
Yeah.
infectious and I feel it. But like, what was like, you know, that 20-year-old version of you, like who did she think she would become?
I think I didn't used to think that much into the future. I didn't dream into or feel into it. Whereas now I'm like, I have such big visions. It's so incredible and magical and beautiful. But I think I probably thought it was going to be like a yoga teacher,
Yeah.
just doing one-on-ones, private yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
Uh, or just being a yoga teacher is probably what I thought at that time. If you're asking me before that, oh, I
Yeah.
can't tell you. I have no idea.
Wow. I know. Isn't it funny how it just like evolves and like retrospective vision is always 2020 when
Yeah.
we like
Yeah.
connect the dots. But
But if we were to go back further,
yeah.
like let's talk about when we were like children, right? I
Yeah.
think that's really special to feel into because I thought I was just going to be like a dancer. Like for me, I was so creative. I was always drawing and dancing and playing and all these things, but I loved dancing, right? And so it's fascinating to recognize that and thought I was going to be a writer and I am, right? I have this is my 10th book. I have 8 children's books and 1 YA book as well.
Wow.
And I am a dancer. Like if you go to my Instagram, I'm dancing in like almost every other, share and speaking to different things and subjects, but infusing
Your
medicine,
love of dance.
my love of dance and knowing that dance is medicine as well, right? So
Yeah,
we are literally the medicine. So whatever lights us up can be medicine for others too.
totally. And it's something I might butcher the quote, but it's like, um, if you don't take your childhood dreams seriously, like no one else will.
Yeah.
And it's so true, like you with the dancing and having it in your cacao practice, also on your Instagram. And I so feel that with like my childhood dreams. It's like still the dreams that I have today
Mm-hmm.
around like, yeah, storytelling and performance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it's just so funny
Yeah.
how there's so much truth in those, and yet we can like get so disconnected from them. And then I feel like our 20s or 30s or Saturn return is all about like coming back to, oh, wait, like the Taylor Swift quote, what you've been looking for has been here the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what's funny is I do remember in my 20s, I was a real estate agent for a moment there. So I probably thought I would have been a real estate agent.
Yeah,
That was another maybe thing I would have done, right? It's like,
right.
who knows?
Yeah, it's real estate of the heart.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love that.
Um, that's so funny. Okay, and then yeah, last little question here, and then we can go into like a meditation
Sure.
and kind of just reiterating the arc or the questions for our listeners. But like when you Oh my gosh, I had just a total brain fart. I was like, I
I
have
love
one
it.
more question. What is it going to be? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I remember. So obviously, you've already been a published author with the children's books, but like, what was the download or the moment where you're like, remember your roots? Like, it's going to be a book. I feel it.
You know what's funny is I had a dream. I have a lot of like prophetic dreams and things and downloads that will come through. And our dreams are really actually important too. Um, but it came through in a dream that I needed to write a book, but it was a different book than this book. Then I sat down with my ex-partner, and what came through was this one. So things will shift and change, but when you do have these ideas and books that you want to write, like it's going to come that other book, but it's going to come later on.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny, the process is such a long process, the publishing process. So this book actually came before the children's books. And
Wow.
I've self-published my children's books. So that's another thing. Whatever excites you, do it, go for it. You may not have, a publishing house that publishes your stories. My first YA book is self-published as well. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for my inner child that I got that book out there, that I wrote that book. That book was also channeled by Cacao Spirit. I sat in ritual, in ceremony, every time I sat down to write for that book.
Wow.
And I also have a script for that book, so everything I do is like this thing that excites my inner child. It's been
Yeah.
beautiful. And yeah, so the children's books came after this book, actually.
That's so interesting. But I love that as a litmus test of like, would my inner child be
Do it,
surprised
do
and
it for them.
delighted by this? Like, what would she like to do?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because in my group coaching program, one of the first action items I give people is like going on a date with their inner child. And
I
sometimes
love it.
some of the women are like, I don't even know what she wants to do because they're like so
Hmm.
disconnected from her that it's even just like sitting with a photo of them and
Hmm.
like starting to reopen those channels
Hmm.
and like until
Yeah.
you can even get like little glimpses of like what would be fun.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that idea of like you're doing it and your inner child's like, this
Hmm.
is awesome.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted. Hopefully, they're listening to our podcast right now, being like,
100%.
wow, go adult us. Um,
Seriously, yeah.
uh, okay, so yeah, would love to be guided by a little meditation from you on remembering our roots, and then we can wrap
Hmm.
it up for our listeners on kind of like, yeah, those steps that they can take to start to remember their roots.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So let's get comfortable. Let's sit up, maybe nice and tall. Want a nice tall spine. Let's take a few deep breaths together, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth, sighing out. We're going to do 6 of those. So inhaling together. Softening with every exhale. Relaxing into receiving. Relaxing the shoulders. Shoulders are back and down. Feeling the face relax, the mouth, the throat and tongue, the muscles around the heart, the belly so soft and relaxed. And feel the tops of your thighs heavy, rooting you into the earth. Noticing with your breath how relaxed you feel. Noticing how the breath brings you into your body, into the present moment, and into your heart if you let it. So with your intention, bring your awareness to your heart space. Breathing into the center of your heart, your big, beautiful heart. And see, feel, sense Try to use your imagination to visualize this light that comes from your heart. Maybe that light is glowing in emerald green or like jade or golden honey, or it's iridescent or pink or red or a rainbow of colors. See that light circulate, activate, and awaken your heart center. Now bringing awareness to the heart of our Mother Earth. Feel the energy of Mother Earth's energy moving up and through your own roots, up and through your root chakra, up and through your lower energy centers and chakras, to merge with the center of your heart. Breathing deep into this merging between your heart and the heart of the mother. Now feeling into the heart of the sky, heart of the cosmos, heart of the heavens. And see, feel, or sense this beautiful energy and light moving down and through the top of your head, cascading over your face, over your upper chakras and energy centers, and like a waterfall moving down and through to enter and merge with the center of your heart. Breathing deep into your heart space, feeling into this merging between the heart of the mother, the heart of the father. Feel yourself cocooned in this beautiful light and healing energy that cocoons you, envelops you, and wraps you in this beautiful healing light from the tips of your toes to the top of your head. And feel into deep gratitude into Matiosh. Matiosh means thank you in Mayan. It is a deeply felt gratitude, a thank you from your heart to the heart of other things. So feeling into gratitude for this reminder that you are the merging between the heart of the earth and the heart of the sky, that you are the medicine, that you are interconnected to all things, to all that is, to all of the magic, all of the love. Remember that you are so loved. You are enough. You are perfect just as you are. And you belong. So giving thanks, and you can say Matiosh out loud if you want to use this beautiful ancient word. Matiosh.
Matiosh.
Thank you.
Wow. I am so relaxed. It's crazy. Felt like it was a massage for my heart and my ears at the same time. So that was really transportive. Thank you for sharing your magic with us.
Yay. You're so welcome.
And as the listeners are in this beautiful kind of dreamlike connected space, what, in your own words, kind of what are like the 3 or 4 steps that they can take to remember their roots? I know we kind of broke down little tidbits of them on the podcast, but what would you say those kind of like steps or even just points of or questions would be for them to start?
Yeah. So first and foremost, setting that intention, um, researching the types of herbs and plants that your ancestors work with. If you don't know where your ancestors come from, maybe do a DNA test, right?
Yeah.
Like 23andMe is the one that I did. That will support you. If you want to already start, you don't have those results and don't know, set the intention and start to connect with them through meditations. The one that we just did is super supportive in that. So from here on, going into journaling and seeing what comes through in that way. And also working with foods that you have within your own kitchen, whatever foods that really excite you, that you absolutely love. For me, it's chocolate, right? Obviously my ancestors loved those ones as well. Yeah. Hence why my father would drink his mochas, right? Why my ancestors were working with this beautiful medicine for thousands of years, even before the Mayans and the Mexica were working with cacao. The Olmecas, which is the mother civilizations of all other civilizations in Mesoamerica, were also working with this ceremonially.
Wow.
So working with foods that excite you and love you, right?
I love that. Yeah. And yeah, from what I gathered too, like, and we kind of talked about it right before the meditation of like, yeah, what were your childhood dreams and what are the kind of like clues there, kind of like you were saying with the foods and things that excite you, like what are the clues there of like where you can go next? And I loved so much too, like the healing of approaching it all with playfulness and imagining like the inner child of our parents or our grandparents or our grandparents' grandparents and that pure like innocence and joy that can be present as we reconnect to our roots, and that can be the compass of where we go next, which is really exciting.
And creating altars is really powerful too. And I will say, I have a course that's called the Magic School, where I go over altar building and rituals and elemental rituals and practices and indigenous practices and diving deeper into cacao. And it's support for you to live your most magical life. So if you want to be guided through the process of connecting, then come to me for the course.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. And building altars is such a special...
Yeah. It is
such a special experience. I have an inner child altar of like photos and things from my like childhood that I reconnect to.
And we're coming into, October, which is a potent time around Halloween and Dia de los Muertos and Samhain, where I speak to that within the Magic School so that you can create altars and ceremony around that potent energetics, because the veil is thinner around that time. So you can connect deeply with your ancestors.
Oh, I love that. So that's such a good reminder. So this is all happening for us. Perfect timing. Yeah. Okay. Well, Christine, thank you so much. This was so powerful, needless to say. And thank you everybody for listening. Let us know how you're reconnecting to your ancestors. And if you have someone else in your life who needs a little bit more remembrance, send this episode to them. And check out Christine's book, Remembering Your Roots, or her cacao, which I'm so excited for Monday. I'm already like salivating thinking about it. My heart's already pulsing with anticipation of openness.
And my email, or I'm sorry, my website, if you want to be able to find all these things, is IamChristinaOlivia.com.
IamChristinaOlivia.com.
And Christine is CHRISTINE, right? And my IG is ChristinaOlivia_.
Okay, perfect. Christina Olivia. I am ChristinaOlivia.com and Christina Olivia, and we'll put this all in the show notes. Yay. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for more powerful stuff.
Thanks, sis.
Thank you. Yay. Hey, you. Thank you for coming on this powerful journey with me. I hope it was as powerful for you as it was for me. And if it was, it would mean the world to me if you rate, review, and subscribe to Powerful Stuff so I can keep bringing you the goods. We can keep going on this transformative journey together. And if there's powerful stuff that you want to share with me, with the Powerful Stuff community, tag us on Instagram at That's Powerful Stuff or The Meredith Baker. And I look forward to seeing you next week for more